Welcome to Satan Show. I am, the imposter, LL Tack. From this episode, I will briefly talk about conditioning the entire world's population to believe anything. That includes the loss of all inhabitable lands for the exclusive enjoyment of the new avant-garde demigods. Beginning thousands of years ago, from the vocal annals of the illiterates until modern mainstream media, never ceasing their monarchs' daily propagandized decrees onto this current sedated generation. The transcontinentalists' ancestors found out agendas were less likely to fail if they gradually steered the minds of humanity, instead of attempting to stop an idea's momentum. Since mental impressions occur before actions make the perceptual movements of life a reality. The momentary fact it is until passing forever away from the participant's participation unto the mist of the muted singularity. Once transpiring, all incidents relinquished unto history's abstruseness, unequivocally, because of no place to store away the magnitude of incalculability. Therefore, time travel will indefinitely be unfeasible with no solid destination to land a preposterous craft. Insane hypotheses rule false historical information, leaving a cloud where ancient clarity once stood. Fact continually replaced in small and large increments. Then modifications manipulated through children's generational textbooks distributed to the colonies to suit the British International's 100 and 1,000-year stratagems. The endgame is for total control of all arable land and taxing the very breath of humanity. That is correct, what we exhale levied in the name of God's mystical powers, employed through its created currency to control the Earth's entire environment. When heard in the form of a simplistic elucidation, climate change in theory is even more ridiculous than how it actually appears in scientific review of the biased data studies. Fashioning fear and terror is by far the simplest way to have fauna or humans do as the transcontinentalists command. In true nature, there is a pecking order amongst fowls and multiple species alpha leaders, regulating the packs, prides, and herds. Each beast brutalizes any challengers that want to take its place, consuming the best parts itself, before seating the rest of the sycophants at the earth's bloated carcass. Gleamed from this knowledge of probing their adversaries to understand the destitute and their habits, reactions to given circumstances. It was only natural for the founders of modern society to domesticate people after they successfully did it to most of the animals meandering over the antediluvian planet. Henceforth winning the conceptual battles with the masses by partially illuminating the past's dark superstitions only to create new scientific ones. Designing words to fabricate visualizations charted by trial and error in every direction, leading from many tries to find information of the needed mind control mechanisms employed today. Very few people are completely cognizant of the extent of the transcontinentalists' overwhelming dominance, and so they themselves, the wealthy, are also victims, near unaware of their own system of cons. The incredible cerebral power that is crucial to keep a starving man with his partner and their 5 famished children at bay, pacified with no idea on how to do anything about it. While watching greed and gluttony of some well-guarded transcontinentalists seated a few feet from the economic vagabonds, ravenous on the other side of the bulletproof glass. Then also in view of the curbed private banquet, exasperated directly behind the leading gaunt family, lines of hundreds or thousands standing just as destitute, hoping for some comestible garbage left over to eat. The entire motely emaciated mob watching the wax, wealthy assholes in charge, stuffing their privileged faces with what little remains edible. The sustenance strained from the few fertile locations lingering unpolluted on the changing planet's surface, not poisoned by ground chemicals, aerosol chemtrails, or radiation waste and leaks. How is this possible today in this age? We have, as civilizations did advance from derivation, become so much more innovative than the ones lost to antiquity, yet still so primitive and brutal. Savagery gave way to barbarism before cultivating modern societies, is what the generations of the world have learned in the Catholic, Islamist, Judaic, British Empire's public school systems. China and Japan receive their indoctrination of political correctness through Confucianism mixed with ancestry worship. India uses Hinduism and Islamic history to confuse and oppress their masses. Because humans share so much of their habits and emotions with beast of burden, terrorizing indigenous people made perfect sense to take what the ancient aristocrats wanted from the 1 billion uneducated expired heathens, their archaic nomadic lands currently owned by the originating transcontinentalists' heirs. Only two things have any tangible value: one has measured worth you can physically stand on, that is not complete bona fide garbage, waiting to become obsolete and discarded. The coalescing priceless pair, which is the foundation of all wars, is land and humans. Nothing else can exist without the earth in all its wonders to sustain it, until catalogued in a public museum. Therefore, we are essential here as witnesses to testify for future generations of its existence. Nowhere reachable, obtainable within anyone's lifetime, is there an inhabitable planet that we can realistically travel to, dwell and use for procreation. If an organism filters water, or just gulps oxygen straight out of the dry air, it resides only here on this isolated unique green globe. Then nevertheless, without people to give meaning and corroborate the events, no observation means it never happened. Once we convince ourselves this is all we have and it is useless to expatriate, what matters for everyone changes. Our daily course on the way to unraveling the birth to death to afterlife conditioning we receive non-stop by word of mouth, whenever we are within listening distance, suddenly becomes more detectable. Whether it is by print, radio, television, or the stranger standing next to you at the checkout counter, the subliminal indoctrination will be administered all day long to everyone at each level. Until the observer becomes oblivious to the level of dominance from the show's slogans and broadcasted mood music, aided with anticipation of submergence into another useless adult stuck in a trance. It is imperative to the transcontinentalists that all people believe in some way they are free inside the thieving extortion system. Even if it is the most insightful of us getting by with supposed subversive resistance to the religious aristocratic corporate mercantilism machine, in reality we are not. The deception makes it possible for us to think that we are making a change peacefully working within the intelligent control grids of the internationals. However, at the end of the day all that we have accomplished is becoming tired from the amount of fruitless labor we did to achieve short-termed weak consignments. Just because the Judaic Islamist Catholic monarchs give in and stop for a little while, does not mean it will not resume in a generation or two when everyone is gone that temporarily halted the patriarchal abuse. We are nearing the end of the necessity for a master middle class, something that has never happened before in the annals of societies. The antiquated individuals required for staffing the military, skilled labor and governing branches no longer required because of the forthcoming robots. As well as their release from the private sector, humans will become an obsolete tool for the dominion of the planet. The governmental municipalities demanded to utilize drones for policing, minding the poor and rich alike. Always making sure people possess the correct moral fiber for blind obedience. The slightest inaction halts most from rationalizing what is actually unfolding before their eyes. It will not be long, when the police drones walk the street of the future restricted nights, no one dare break presidential curfew. Executive orders replacing Congress and the Senate, with most states' own governments dismantled and jailed for treasonous hidden ties found by the Department of Homeland Security. Broken and replaced locally by the Federal Reserve Washington, D.C. officials, BLM, FBI and CIA. This is not the same for the transcontinentalists, they are above the law and answer only to their contemporaries. If some of them get too greedy and steal too much, those nonconformists reigned in exploiting assassinations and war. Neither the poor nor the master middle class will be able to touch these exempt demigods ruling over the world today. They are taught from their very first breath, delivered by divine birth to the royal families to become one of the great future lords of the land. Whether it is Allah, Jehovah, Yeshiva, or such as the name is for what does not exist to scare the ignorant into behaving. The poor damned to earthly hell must believe they are powerless against a unified spiritual Almighty and its aristocratic mortal minions. People and property, why do these two have so much importance held by the transcontinentalists, that they would lie always to everybody? They and some, murder modern-day presidents and premiers before their relations fall from future peculiar accidents to keep the con a secret. Neither can exist without the other, it is not Byzantine to understand. If there were no humans alive to communicate and register, it does not matter if the tree makes a sound or not when it falls. Given that, it is in the psyche void of the vast emotionless thoughtless forest when it drops. The planet with its unaware flora and fauna would travel through the ages of space, as species slipped into oblivion before joining the rest of the extinct unaccounted phantasms of fiction's past. Reality is not even a concept, with no one alive to scribe its convolutions. Planet Earth's land again, never within one's own attainable lifetime. Much less for those that believe in full reincarnation of 10 times, is there any place else you can walk outside without an enormous environmental ensemble on for modest protection. Off-world people unable to receive vitamin D and fresh air across their unexposed skin, as abundantly available on this blue orb. The indestructible globe, property put to the plow, built upon and even blown up yet still firm as ever beneath the trillion-year-old nitrogen-rich organic mineral debris. Only the planet under our feet will last forever, nothing else goes on and on like the celestial giants orbiting throughout space. Yes, there are occasional explosions when black holes collect too much matter and bloat into supernovas, disrupting and destroying the solar systems adjacent to the massive dark behemoths as they explode. This happens when not even the gravitational energy of the graviton can escape its own collecting clutches, causing the detonations that create new heavenly bodies. The Big Bang is as ludicrous as all God science, or what they call modern quantum physics. The true acronym for the faux area of expertise is BS. The transcontinentalists use our ability to transmit and receive emotional energy against us to hide their manipulation of information. The extrasensory faculty labeled stage charisma or a commanding presence. Revering the gifted person's purported greatness, or the feeling you have when someone is observing or stalking you. The nerve endings controlled by the claimed unused area of our brain, effective from the center of our torso, the transponder of the electrical waves. Whether it is in front or from our posterior, the signals sent and collected from your chest, deciphered by the subconscious. Please, we can stop what we think the future will be by changing what we see in our mind's eye. Bring back the steel industry to build implements for agriculture. Excavate to construct underground cities and railways. Bore and trench new hydroelectric dams and utilize river diversion pipes to send water downstream to shoreline turbine generator facilities. Unite the North and South American continents into one lawful republic of unified self-governing states. Deconstruct the federal government and replace it with a council of all the governesses from the individual states to oversee and make laws for the republic. Take the wonderful system we have today, and make it better for all women and children for the first time in the history of humanity. Think of it, no more cannibalizing each other's happenstance limited lifetime on Earth. It is as if caught in a raging river and letting it control our actions and thoughts, fear, and the overwhelming strength of the current submerging us, towing downwards towards a drowning doom. Instead of doing what we do best, adapting and then manipulating our surroundings. Losing trepidation and riding the swift water diagonally to shore, finding out when it was over, it was more exciting instead of fearful survival. Thank you for listening to Satan Show. I am, the imposter, LL Tack.